Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Pascal. I just wanted to share with you a brief presentation on the findings of my research paper, which sought to explore whether there was a strong relationship between oil rents and income inequality, and what effect did that have on democracy in Venezuela over a 20-year period. My interest for this topic grew after watching the anti-government protests on Vice one night. It was fascinating to me that a nation like Venezuela, which sits on the world's largest oil reserves and was once the wealthiest country in South America, could find itself with poverty levels exceeding 80%. While learning about modernization theory and comparing the Freedom House scores of different countries, we have seen that wealthier nations tend to be more developed and thus tend to have lower levels of income inequality. So to see a country of such considerable wealth, yet with presumably high levels of income inequality, it's important to see what type of factors contribute to this outcome. So what does the literature tell us about this issue? Michael Ross wrote a paper that's widely regarded on the subject matter, and he argues in this paper that oil rents actually have a negative relationship with democracy. States with higher oil rents have a tendency to be more corrupt and abuse their powers. An article written by Marissa Cochran that discusses the effects of oil wealth on democratization explains that states with higher oil revenues tend to unevenly disperse those funds, which contributes to income inequality, but also uses those same revenues to fund assistance programs as a means to blunt social unrest. States with high oil rents also tend to suffer from Dutch disease. Dutch disease is the negative impact on an economy with anything that gives rise to a sharp inflow of foreign currencies, such as the discovery of large oil reserves. The currency inflows leads to currency appreciation, making the country's other products less price competitive on the export market. While evaluating oil rents, I wanted to focus on three areas. I wanted to focus on oil rents as a percentage of GDP. I wanted to evaluate total oil production in terms of barrels per day. And I also wanted to look at oil as a percentage of total exports out of the country as a means to see how diversified the economy was. The Gini coefficient is a widely used metric for income inequality, so I chose to use it for my research. Next, I added the 20-20 ratio because I thought it would be useful to know the wealth distribution between the top 20% and the bottom 20%. Finally, to add perspective, I chose to include GDP per capita. The research did reveal that Venezuela had significant income inequality. In 2004, the top 20% controlled more than half of the wealth, while the bottom 20% controlled less than 5%. This did improve over time as shown in the table, but the disparity was still fairly high, as expressed in the Gini index numbers. Despite the income disparity, Venezuela, along with Uruguay, actually had the most equal wealth distribution in Latin America. A report published by a UN Regional Commission in June 2017 said that the country's average of 0.400 was less than the region's average of 0.469. Since the death of Hugo Chavez in 2013, Venezuela has seen a steady decline in oil production. At present, the country is only able to export roughly 2.1 million barrels of oil per day. A contributing factor to this decline is the cost of refining the oil. What else does Venezuela export besides petroleum? Based on this chart, not much else. Venezuela exported $34.3 billion worth of goods in 2013, and close to 90% of that was petroleum. No other export makes up for more than 3%. The observations in wealth disparity and income inequality seem to coincide with the idea of unevenly dispersed funds. The assistance programs that were once well funded under Chavez have largely disappeared under Maduro. The absence of such subsidies has now made supermarket goods scarce and unaffordable. The observations of Venezuela's overdependence on oil definitely supports the theory of Dutch disease. The country is producing fewer barrels of crude, yet oil revenues still make up the vast majority of the country's foreign income, which continues to hurt the agricultural sector. My research findings pretty much fall in line with the literature that I came across on the subject matter. Based on that, I would have to agree that there is a fairly strong relationship between oil rents and income inequality. That concludes my presentation. Thanks for watching.